Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the 2019 Golden Elephant Award winner announcement and roundtable discussion. It's been a weird year. I mean, not like I got to tell any of y'all that, but clearly 2019 and 2020, well, I guess the 2020 has been weird, and we always make our announcements. Normally, we have the finalists announced in April, and then the Golden Elephant Award winner announced at HeavyCon on the Friday of HeavyCon. But 2020 happened, and things kind of got a little sideways on all of us, and therefore made it a little harder for us to get all of the games played as a group that we wanted to get played to be able to do this award justice like we've done in years past. So that's why here it is mid-October, and we're just now getting to last year's award. Hopefully this year will be a little bit better, and by this year I mean the 2020 award that's announced in 2021. You get the idea. So some of you guys out there might be unfamiliar with what the Golden Elephant Award is, and to be honest with you, it kind of started as a lark. And me and my old podcast partner who started this show with me, Tony Fryer, we kind of felt that the heavier end of the hobby kind of got short shrift when it came to the awards out there, because everybody knows of some of the bigger awards out there. There's the Spiel des Jahres, there's the Kennerspiel des Jahres, there's a number of others, the Origins Awards, there's the Jogo de Ono Award, and there's a handful of others out there, or maybe a plethora of others out there. But as it is, there really isn't anything that focuses on the heavier end of the spectrum. And we were like, well, you know, we have a podcast. At the time, we had just a podcast, and we were like, we should figure out an award. So we created the Golden Elephant Award, because Davis, duh. So we did, and it started back in 2014 and has blossomed into what I think is a pretty respected award here in the industry for the heavier end of the hobby. Now, the Jogo de Ono is the only one that really is close in that regard, but honestly, that focuses more on midweight games, midweight Euros out there, and we tried to run the gamut of medium and heavy strategy board games, war games, 18xx, all the stuff that we talk about here on Heavy Cardboard. And it was recognized by BGG as being a, I guess, legitimate award, however you want to word that. But the criteria that went into this, and that continues to go into it, is kind of very similar to the criteria of whenever we do reviews. So depth of analysis and planning, the depth of the gameplay, low luck factor, opacity, or how clear it is how to play the games and how to do well in the games. And the innovation or uniqueness of the mechanisms and theme, and the enjoyment factor of it. All of that go into the criteria that create what we think is a pretty cool award. And you can see back here, last year, or the previous year's award, the 2018 Golden Elephant Award for Brass Birmingham, which was unfortunately not able to hand out in person yet. So Gavin Brown and Matt Tolman, Martin Wallace, if we ever have a convention again, maybe in the next handful of years, I'm kidding, hopefully next year, I'll be able to hand this over to them directly. And as you can see, I mean, it's a pretty big piece of glass that we have laser etched inside it there. It's pretty nice, I think. So unfortunately, due to COVID, we weren't able to get the actual 2019 award here in time. That was part of the delay in getting it. But we decided, you know what, we're going to go ahead and press forward and come on and go forward with the announcement. There is one last thing that is kind of an unwritten criteria for the Golden Elephant Award. And what that is just, is it going to matter down the road, 5 years, 10 years? Is this game still going to be relevant? Because let's face it, here in 2020, a lot of people buy a game, play it, maybe play it a couple more times, and then it catches dust over in a corner. And I like to think that all of the previous Golden Elephant Award winners, that's not the case. And so even though it's not an official part of the award process and the determining process, I feel like it kind of matters. So we kind of have that in there, even if it's not written down. And for those wondering, the previous winners, so the 2013, awarded in 2014, it's always the case, winner, Madeira, from What's Your Game, as well as designers Nuno Santiago and Paulo Soledad. The 2014 winner was Arkwright, designed by Stefan Riesthaus and published originally by Spielworks. 2015 winner is Food Chain Magnate, designed by Jeroen Douwman and Joris Viersinger and published by Splotter Spellen. 2016 was an interesting one because it only had something like 140 copies had been sold at the time it won the award, and that is 1822 Railways of Great Britain, designed by Simon Cutforth and published by All Aboard Games. 2017 winner was Lisboa, designed by Vital Lacerda and published by Eagle Griffin Games. And last year's winner, as I mentioned, Brass Birmingham, designed by Gavin Brown, Matt Tolman, and Martin Wallace, and published by Roxley Games. So this year, there's a number of us out there. There are 9 judges this year, and I've taken enough of their time here, so let me go ahead and bring them in. So welcome to the 2019 Golden Elephant Award judge, panelists, whatever, the judges. Basically, it's our game group, is what it is. And before I introduce them, a little explanation. Every year, there's the People's Choice Award, the Golden Elephant Award People's Choice Award, and I was wondering why there were only, say, 300 votes on that when there are 828 people that are eligible to vote, which are all the patrons of Heavy Cardboard. And come to find out, the reason for that is most of the people either haven't played enough of the games or haven't played any of the games or some mix therein and in between. However, all the people that are here on this panelist have played all the games. Well, a lot of them anyways, the majority of them. All the finalists as well as others. And so it kind of makes sense that, well, these are people I can count on that I know, I respect their opinions, they're good gamers, they have well thought out opinions, usually, and I point at myself with that, but and overall, good people and sound judgment. So you know what, makes sense to bring them on. So yeah, why don't we, so we'll start with Jess, because that's the obvious one, right? So Jess, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Jess, board game girl Jess. You see me on a lot of these Heavy Cardboard streams and other places as well, starting up Girl Stampede, and yeah, play a lot of games. So that is true. And I don't think everybody gets that luxury. So that is a good point, Edward, that it's hard to vote on these things. And I think all awards have that as, you know, a barrier, is how do you make sure that you're playing everything that's out there? We have thousands and thousands of games coming out a year. So having this niche is really good, and having these judges be fans of that niche so that we've gotten plays in this game, of these games, is really, really good. So I'm just excited to be here and find out the winner, or help announce the winner. I do know the winner. I'm not going to lie. I do know the winner right at this point.
So I was going to have you guys just do this willy-nilly, but I realize on Zoom, your guys' aren't set up the same way mine are. So we'll go directly below you. So Ken, go ahead, introduce yourself.
Yeah, not the same.
Hey, I'm Ken Shows. Yeah, I've been in this game group for, I don't know, like a year and a couple of months now. So right, 2019 was really sort of like the start of my Heavy Cardboard experience as a player in the game group, as I think probably is true for most of the folks here. But you know, had been a watcher before that. And my day job is that I work at a school. So I'm involved with all the crazy stuff that is involved with working at a school in 2020 right now.
Seriously, I don't envy you, but I appreciate what it is you do, though. So, how about you, Mike? Let's go. Keep going down.
All right, I'm Mike, same as Ken, but in Heavy Cardboard Game Group for just over a year, just after last HeavyCon, I think. Got to meet everybody and play a lot of games, been on stream a few times, get my butt handed to me mostly, but it's always fun, always have a good time, and happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm Andrew. Been basically around the same amount of time that Ken's been part of the group, and yeah, it's an honor to be here, and it is funny how it's an effort to make sure you play as many games as possible to be like a reasonable judge for this. So it's a lot of effort, but it's a lot of fun too.
All right, and Ariel.
Hi, I'm Ariel. So I discovered Heavy Cardboard maybe 2 months before Edward announced he was moving to Boston. So that was good timing for me. So I made sure to hustle on over to HCHQ and introduce myself. And likewise, it's fun to play all these games. 2019 was such a good year for heavy games that my #1 game did not even make the finalists list. So
we'll talk about it. You can lament at length about it as well. All right. So let's go with Brass Birmingham. The background there. Apparently, Martin voted for Brass Birmingham yet again this year.
Hey, can't vote for Brass Birmingham often enough, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, well, I started listening to Heavy Cardboard when it was only a podcast. I'm not sure exactly when, and I was delighted when HC moved to Boston, and I'd kind of got a clue that they're becoming really close to me because I decoded some of Jess's Twitter posts to figure out that she lived in Wakefield. So I thought, that's just right next door. So it's perfect. And wonderful year last year, playing lots of good games. I didn't play as many of these games as much as I'd like to have done, but I did play a lot of them. And then I really missing everybody since March. No games with my favorite local game group. It's terrible.
Right.
So that's a great shame, but it's good to see everybody.
All right, and Board Game Doc.
Hi, I'm Chris Serini. Just picking up where Martin left off. It's really great to see all you guys again. And one of the things I learned playing games, over the past year or so with you guys is that it's almost as fun talking about them afterwards as like playing with them and thinking about where it fits in amongst our favorite games and why we like this and why we didn't like that. So I'm excited to do some of that tonight with you guys.
Right? Seriously,
Yeah.
that legitimately is almost as good as playing the games, if not better at times, right? Depending on what the game is. And last but not least, my good friend who has turned me on to far more tea than anyone else in the world, Shrey.
Yeah, I'm Shrey. I am very privileged to be part of the local group and the herd as a whole. It's just awesome to be able to get to play all these amazing games. And 2019 was a very good year. So and to play with you guys, it's fantastic. I tend to play more of the Euros than some of the other things, but so I represent that side of the hobby, I think, more than some like 8XX war games. But this is a fantastic group of nominees this year. So
I think so. So speaking of which, now that everybody has introduced themselves, before we get into the discussion about all of the games, I figure I would kind of remind everybody what the games are. So we have Barrage, designed by Tommaso Battista and Simone Luciani, and published by Cranio Creations. Then we have BIOS Origins, 2nd edition, and that was designed by Phil Eklund and Jan Menker, and published by Sierra Madre Games / Ion Game Design. And then we had City of the Big Shoulders, designed by Raymond Chandler III and published by his company, Parallel Games. And next we have Pex Pamir 2nd edition, designed by Cole Worley and published by Whirligig Games, the company run by him, by Cole and his brother. And then we have Pax Transhumanity, designed by Matt Eklund, which is Phil Eklund's son, and published by Ion Game Design and Sierra Madre, which is Ion Game Design. And finally, we have Pipeline, designed by Ryan Courtney and published by Capstone Games. All right, so I have everybody's list that they submitted to me, and I submitted my list as well. And why don't we just go ahead and tackle these one at a time, I think is the best way to do this. So for those that had voted for Barrage, feel free to chime in. Say, I don't know, start whoever you wish. Ariel, go for it.
Sure. So Barrage, I thought Barrage was like a very competent heavy Euro. And there were a lot of those. I think there were other ones that could have made the list, like Crystal Palace comes to mind as kind of a similarly strong Euro. I very much enjoyed it. It sort of, scratched similar itches to other games. It's hard for me to imagine wanting to play it over something like Gaia Project, which I thought was really pretty similar. So it wasn't my winner, but I thought it was a strong game and I enjoyed it.
All right. Andrew, I know you also had it on your list.
Yeah, and I've actually gotten to play it a few more times since voting. And I think it's a really, really strong Euro. And I think what is really appealing about it is it's just so tight. Like there's no room for error in it. And there's so much interplay. Like it's not a Euro where you're just gonna sit in your corner and are building your engine and no one's bothering you. Like everyone is on top of each other from the beginning of the game, and it just stays that way for the whole time. I really, really like it, and I think it's got it feels unique in a way that most Euros don't to me. I think where it stumbles for me a little bit is it feels, this is kind of a weird way to put it, I guess, but it feels a little overproduced in that there's just so much stuff in the box. There's so many things going on where it's like the nation powers and the exos and the special building tiles and the contracts, and like it's stuff upon stuff upon stuff to a level that like feels kind of unnecessary almost, which sounds harsher than I mean it to be, I think. But I really like it. I think it is really, for anyone who likes a cutthroat Euro, I think it's really good.
It's tight. It's extraordinarily tight. And it's a slow burn because it feels like you do things and it takes a while to actually have those things materialize, in that you have the little wheel in which, okay, I want to be able to do this, and when am I going to be able to do it is going to be a number of turns down the road. And it really pays or rewards some really, really in-depth thinking and really the forethought and the long-term planning. And it's really, really tight.
Yeah.
Yes, but I mean, this is a game designed by a guy who builds dams about dams. Like, no one said this yet. This is amazing. Here's this guy, and his job is building dams, and he's like, well, now I'm going to make a board game about it. And then he does, and there's no water. There's no water in this game. It's a game about water, and you're trying to get the water to come down to your plant that you just spun a wheel all around and collected all these things to make this happen. And then Edward came in and put his thing right above you, so he's going to siphon off your water. So then you're like, fine, I'm just going to take my turn to steal the water, and there's no water. No one gets water. And it's a game about dams, and that's awesome.
I'm sure it's just like the cutthroat world of dam building, I'm sure. Right? But I do say, like, Jess has a great point, that all these things really come together in a game, and I think you feel really smart when you can figure something out in it, and it has that really good like dopamine surge of, oh, I did that a few turns ago, and look, and now it's paying off, sort of thing.
You know, I don't know that I've ever heard that actually described that way, that it really is a dopamine surge whenever you get something super clever in a game and you're like, oh, look at what I just did. So it's funny how many of these games, if not all of the games on this list, have some little bit of that, right? To where
that's an important note, because whether you win or lose the game, we say this all the time, like, oh, I don't care that I didn't lose. I got this certain plaque, and that's what I wanted, and I got it, so I'm good. So I think some of these games have that hidden gem of something that you figure out and do, and now it doesn't matter who the winner is. You're just so proud of yourself.
Well, let's not
for
get
doing
carried
the
away.
thing.
I mean, so how about you, Martin? You had it on your list as well.
Yeah, what I really liked about Barrage was, actually, before I even mention it, I should mention that this was one of the very first games I played at HCHQ. And in particular, it has a special, but back nearly 2 years ago, and it has a very special position in my HCHQ experience, as it was the first game in which I was crushed by Jess. One of a long line of games to be thrashed by Jess at.
Part of that crew. Cheers.
Exactly. But what I really like about this game, and I haven't played it for nearly 2 years now, but it sticks very firmly in memory. It just has that same interplay of cooperation and competition. You know, and that's of course a feature of, you know, my big favorite game behind me. And this has a good bit of that. And I really like a game that sets that kind of system going. I didn't feel it was quite as smooth a game as Brass. And I remember thinking about the Kickstarter and thinking, it looks like it's a bit too in love with weird components. And my God, I dodged a bullet on the Kickstarter, didn't I? Because that was an unfortunate thing for Cranio. But the gameplay was really excellent. And I'd love the chance to get to it again. Unfortunately, I only got a couple of plays and it was a while ago. But I did enjoy that cooperation competition element to it.
All right. Anybody else for Barrage? Anything else? Chime in? No? All right. So let's move on to the next one. And I need to make sure I do these in alphabetical order. So let's see. Barrage, done. So next, BIOS Origins, 2nd edition. So a number of folks obviously had this on their list as well. Let's see. Jess, or Ariel, we'll start with you again, just because it's right there.
I was hoping you wouldn't call it me because I had this one on my finalist list, but it was based on reputation and playthrough. So I actually never got this one played to my great shame. So it's probably going to go somebody else.
All right, Jess. I mean, you are.
You know, I've played it.
Huh?
You know, I've played it. You can always, yeah. I mean, you know what I think of BIOS Origins. We played that on stream, obviously, and this was the type of game where you look at it and there's so much going on. There's so many. I remember when you first showed me this and you pulled out the sheet and it's the Rosetta Stone and it has like 60 icons. And I was like, really? Okay, great.
Hell, I thought that.
Yeah, I know. And you're showing me. But what we realized was very quickly, there were 5. There were 5 that you were using regularly. And there's all this other stuff that will come up, but all you do is look at the Rosetta Stone and you're fine. So again, we just talked about those clever moments. It felt like, oh, I'm so smart. Like when I'm playing this game, I felt really intelligent. Like I understood how to build this world and do these things. And yet it is a simple game. There's 3 phases and you really only need to do great in one phase because that's the score that's going to matter. So it's about either biding your time or seeing, and that's a weird thing to say about a BIOS game is that it has a little bit of social deduction in it. I'm watching to see what you're doing, because if you're going to go all in, maybe I want to build up for a future era instead of what we're currently in. I don't want to attack you. So there's a lot of interplayability. And that's what I enjoyed about it, is there, it wasn't like I was just building this or doing this solo. Even to unlock the cards and bring them over, I have to have help or other things on there to go and bring those in. So I liked that the interplayability and playing with others, and then just picking what you were going to do.
And I should be clear. Even if you didn't vote for it, you can still chime in here, guys. So don't feel like I'm limiting that. I had it on my list as well, and this was probably outside of like a game like High Frontier. I think this is probably the most intimidated and most scared of a game I've ever been in my entire life when I first saw it. And the reason is because of that Rosetta Stone, just the sheer list of number of actions that you can take. I was like, it's the first time that I committed to a playthrough that I was like, oh, I don't know about this one. And as I went through the rule book, I realized exactly what Jess had just said. It's actually just a handful of options on your turn. Yeah, do one thing at a time. Okay, this. And it's actually one of the simpler games on this list, believe it or not, even though it looks probably the most intimidating. I love civilization games. I love tech trees. This game has all of that. It has a dynamic market in which you're going to be auctioning off cards. I enjoyed it solo. I enjoyed it multiplayer. I literally enjoy it at the entire player count. And I was blown away at how much I enjoyed this game. And this game in particular was one of those rare gems for me that usually after I'm done either reviewing a game or doing a playthrough of it here on the show or whatever, okay, I'm done with it for a while. This is one of those that I just kept champing at the bit to want to get back to the table and want to play, even though it's not helping the show and it's hard to squeeze those in. And I was so excited to be able to play this multiple times, over and over, even off stream, that I still, to this day, can't get enough of BIOS Origins. Second, I think it's a gem, absolute gem, and far easier to play than it looks. So, anyone else want to chime in?
Yeah, I'll chime in.
Okay.
This is the last of these games that I played at HCHQ, of the Barrage being the first one. And I remember it particularly because we'd had quite a long day of games. And then there was myself and Shrey and Rand. And we thought what we need is a nice little filler before we close up for the night. And Edward says, I want to play BIOS Origins again. And so we ended up with BIOS Origins. There's a lot that I liked about the game, but in one play, and I only played it once, I really didn't get a good handle on what was going on. I felt there was a bit too much happening, and that may be just a single play notion, but that was kind of a feel for it. But it was certainly, I liked the way things moved around the map. The theme kind of didn't go for me because it seemed almost too grand. We're taking civilization from the development of menopause to the development of space travel. I mean, it's kind of, it's a bit too big. But it was a good game, and I would like to give it a try again at some point once also this is all over.
All right, anyone else?
Yeah, so this is I think I had 4 games on my final list, and this is the one that I cut last. It is, it's maybe my only complaint is that at 4, it's a little chaotic. But with this theme, that's appropriate, I think. Like, it should be probably a little chaotic. It's a heck of a game. I would like to play it a lot more. I think the other hard thing that's hard is it's long. It's not a short game, but really, really great game.
It can be. I mean, obviously player count dependent on that, right?
Yeah.
And I think just like any other game, the more you play it, the more familiar you are, the rules get out of the way, and it tends to flow a lot more. I was surprised at how quickly it played solo and how smoothly it played solo. But yeah, the 4-player can run a little bit long. That's a fair point. So, but overall, this was absolutely one of the big ones on my, well, I would argue that most of these were on my list. Not all. Were they? No, they may have been. I forget. See what I did there. All right, so moving on. Next one, City of the Big Shoulders. Well, a lot of folks had this on their list, so go for it. So actually, Ken, go. Start with this, because I know this one was on yours.
Yeah, it was on my list. And it's funny, like I played it a lot about a year ago when we were prepping for the stream. And then I've been playing it a lot lately because it's got a good implementation on Board Game Arena. So that's a place I can actually play games right now. It's got kind of a special place for me. I think this was the second stream I was on. And so I was still kind of new to the whole streaming thing. And that was a really fun stream where even though we kind of knew who was going to win from about the third turn on, but it was still a blast. I will say, and I've talked to Ariel about this, so I know he doesn't feel the same way because he's a big 18xx guy. But for me, this is like as close to 18xx as I want to get. Like, I think it's got some of the shared incentive stock stuff that's going on there, but with a more Euro-y sensibility and the worker placement and the sort of worker placement construction stuff that I really like, and I think that's the thing about the game that I love.
Well, the one who kind of took it on the chin on that one, Chris, you want to talk
Hey.
a little?
Hey, I appreciate it's a good game, but if you want to see a guy hold it together for 5 hours on a live YouTube stream, you can check out the playthrough of. Hey.
That was definitely a you were a trooper on that one for sure.
Bringing up the name of the game, I since bought the game because I had some ups and downs, thinking maybe I should try it again, maybe I shouldn't try it again. It's objectively a good game. I know it is. I haven't played it since the stream. I hear the name of it and I just got a little shiver.
All right, Shrey, go for it.
Yeah. So I think this is a very, very good game. And the thing that is interesting about this for me is that I want to play it as a Euro, which and I appreciate the stock manipulations that's there, and I'm trying to like figure out the right companies to invest in, and that's not usually my kind of thing. So I think in a game against people who are good at those kinds of games, I would fail miserably. But I still thoroughly enjoy the worker placement side and the running your company well side. I just don't think I would ever be actually good at the game. It's that aspect of it, I think, is completely enjoyable and worthwhile. I don't think I would ever turn this down.
All right, Mike,
That
Andrew,
kinda-
or go
that-
for it, Jess. Go.
That kind of comes back to what you're saying, though, like those small victories, those things that you want to accomplish, and the dopamine you get from like, oh, I did this cool thing. And it's true, you have your little company, you know what you need to do to make it just run perfectly. And when you get that to happen, you just feel really great, win, lose, or draw. Of course, for Chris, it didn't work out. So not so great, but yeah.
All right.
Yeah, much like Ken, I thought, City of the Big Shoulders was as close to 18xx as I wanted to get. And then I started diving into that a bit more. And while I still appreciate City of the Big Shoulders, I think it's a great mix of Euro and economic kind of stock game. The more I've played 18xx, kind of the less I've been inclined to play City of Big Shoulders. But I think in terms of games last year that I personally played, it definitely deserved a call out in this contest. So.
All right, so I'm curious. So Ariel, you're probably the biggest 18xx guru here in this group that we have assembled here. I'm curious, on the flip side of it, you coming into this more as a train gamer as opposed to a Euro gamer, why are you not as keen on it?
Yeah, it's so clearly designed with 1846 as sort of like the grandfather of the design. And I love 1846, and I don't, there are things that this game does that are a lot less interesting to me. So there's no real liability, which takes away a lot of the tension. And then Raymond made a strange decision about how the shares work, which I'm curious to know why he did, because I'm sure he thought a lot about it. But so in 1846, when you sell a group of shares, it only drops one, and that's sort of a common thing in incremental cap games. And in this game, it drops all the way, and there's no ledging anywhere. So I think if you played this game with train gamers, and I think this is borne out with some of the people who play this game, it becomes this like stock trashing game, and that's really what it is. And it's just a race to the bottom. And it's an odd decision for a game that is really sort of an incremental cap game at heart. So that struck me as weird. And the fact that there was no real liability, there just wasn't enough tension in it for me. I'm curious what Jess thinks about it too, because I know Jess really likes 18xx, and I have a sense she might like this game better than me.
No, it's interesting. I do think I agree that if you really love the way 18xx works, that's not how you can come into this game. I enjoy City of the Big Shoulders from the sense that it's not 18xx. It just isn't. And I really separate it from that. I think it can be a stepping stone for some people who want to begin to understand what's happening in an 18xx game. So maybe play this with them and say, okay, this is some of the mechanisms you're going to run into. but I just don't see it as an 18xx whatsoever. So I definitely hear your point. And I could see where if you're already into 18xx and you already understand the reasons for why 18xx works the way it does, that coming into City of the Big Shoulders is going to be, well, then why? But I think those were things, decisions made based on what the core audience for City of the Big Shoulders really was, and it wasn't 18xxers.
Yeah, and I think that pretty much hit it on the head, that who is this game designed for, right? And exactly what Shrey had said, that very much the Euro side of things with a taste of your train game experience. And I think it nails it in that regard. However, there is, as you get more and more experience with the game, there is the possibility of it being exactly what Ariel had said, to where it becomes a stock trashing game, and it's a race to the bottom. So not everybody's going to play it that way, but if you I think it depends whether you're coming at it from the Euro side or whether you're coming at it from the train gamer side. So it's interesting to hear the two sides of all of that. So I think it's a fair criticism, but I also am a huge proponent of it being on this list, and I think it absolutely deserves to be. So that said, moving on, PAX Premier, second edition. Who wants to jump on this? Okay, fine, I will. I've yet to play it solo, so I apologize about that. I keep wanting to, but I keep not doing it. That said, the game plays amazing, in my opinion, at 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a completely different game at every different player count, first and foremost, which the fact that it's viable at the entire player count range, I think is commendable, because how many games say they play X to X, and they can, but not really. Whereas I think PAX Premier does that. But the bigger thing that I think it nails is it takes an existing game, the first edition designed by Cole and Phil Eklund, and basically makes it far more approachable while still making it an incredibly compelling game. And is the, I would argue, quintessential jumping off point now for those that are not familiar with the PAX series to get into that. And the game is different every single time you play it. I love this game, totally and fully.
Yeah, I'll jump in here because I actually played it as a solo game too, and I think it does a good job even at that player count. It's a little bit different than some solo games where you can kind of have an idea what the solo bot is going to do on their turn instead of just a random card flip. So you have a little bit more control over the game, even though you're playing by yourself. And yeah, I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of good things to say about this game, and I'm no different. I can remember a lot of the games I've had going back to last HeavyCon and playing it over and over and over again at HeavyCon. And I remember playing it a year ago, and we could go out to dinner and went out for Edward's birthday, and we had a fun stream after that playing this game. It's just like there's just they're all different, they're all kind of memorable, and it's just like so unique, and it did get me into the world of PAX games too. So yeah.
Well, let's stay on that side. Martin, go for it.
Yeah, well, I just actually want to say something very briefly about City of the Big Shoulders. Since
Sure. Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to nominate City of the Big Shoulders for another award, which is the most tediously boring Kickstarter of all time. I mean, it just went, you got a message every so often from Raymond saying, everything's going according to plan, and then, it shipped pretty much on time. I mean, it was snooze fest of a Kickstarter.
Yeah, no problems, no issues, what?
Exactly.
I don't know.
But anyway, back to the PAX Premier second edition.
And for those that don't get it, that's a huge compliment. In other words, like it was uneventful.
It went well.
Hey, it did everything it said it was going to do, and it delivered on time. What? All right, yeah. So right. All right. So PAX Premier, go for it.
Back to PAX Premier. So I'd heard Edward raving about this game for weeks and weeks before HeavyCon, and then he had it out on HeavyCon, and you kind of look at those lovely bits. I mean, it is beautiful.
Cole sent us an advance copy of it, and we had it on the table there because it was the only one out there. So I was like, ooh, let me show this off. That was cool.
Oh, and it is, I mean, it's not just that it's beautifully produced. I mean, you can say that as well about the brass the Roxley Brass or about the Eagle Griffin games. They're beautiful as well. But there's something special, I think, about PAX's production. It really does feel imaginative in the way that it takes the setting of Afghanistan and puts it into the game pieces. And to me, it gives it that little bit of sparkle. And then, I mean, if you've heard me talk about games in our roundtables, you know I'm a big fan of Dan Thoreau's description about how he talks about setting and theme, where the setting is just the artwork and, Concordia's setting is Roman Empire. But theme is more important because theme is where it actually brings you some aspect of what the game's really about. Concordia's got nothing to do with the Roman Empire in terms of its gameplay. With PAX Pamir, though, you really do have this sense of these weird shifting alliances and things can change. And yes, I'm totally allied with Jess because we're both supporting the British, but at the same time, we're busily knifing each other with our spies on our cards. And the weird game shifts where you can play a two-player game. I'm playing a two-player game with Cindy, and we're both allied with the British the entire game. And we're, there's no interest on the map because the British are all over it, but we're fighting for influence instead and trying to think, is there an advantage to ditching the British and switching to someone else? Or all of these kinds of thoughts really do strike me as very much the kind of thoughts that you would have if you were an Afghan warlord in the time of the Great Game. And I think what it really does well is bring together not just an interesting setting that's really beautifully produced, but on top of that, a theme that really immerses you in the thinking of the world that it puts together. And that, I think, makes this game very, very special. One caveat, though, we're talking about heavy cardboard Golden Elephant. One of the characteristics is low luck. This is not a low luck game. There's card flow. And the way you succeed at this game is taking advantage of the shifts in luck. So that's something to bear in mind. If you're after one of these games with very little randomness, this is not going to be a game for you. But if you can enjoy the card flow and you can really get into the flow of the game, there's a lot of depth and richness there.
Shrey, sorry to make you follow Martin, but
no, that's always tough to follow. I think, that's a lot of what I was going to echo. What's amazing about this game is it does something that I don't usually look for in a game, and I love it. I, being a Euro person, I'll take this blue cube and turn it into a gold cube, and then I'll get 3 points. Yay, right? I like that. This one, you feel the story, you see the progression, right? It's amazing, and that's one of the things that stands out to me. Like it's the fact that you feel that theme. Like it's great. And then all the way the mechanics, like the shifting alliances and making those decisions about the right time to move to the Afghans or the Russians. Like it's all that comes together in such a neat little package. I think this game is going to be around. This game is going to be played for a long time.
So I'm monitoring chat as you guys are talking about this, and you're all spot on. And I think Raymond says PAX Premier 2nd Edition is a great example of luck driving emergent opportunities. And I think that kind of sums up exactly what Martin was saying, that yes, there is a lot of randomness and a lot of luck, but it's your ability to capitalize on it and position yourself in which you can. I agree. Andrew, anything to add? Or anyone else? I don't want to just call on you guys. So,
well, I feel like I might be the odd one out in that I feel it's like undeniable. This is an amazing game. Like the production is incredible, and like the challenge of making a PAX game that is this approachable and this understandable and this it's not an beginner entry level thing, but it's something that you can show to somebody who has very little experience with games and immediately will catch their eye. And that is such an accomplishment, and it's so mechanically clean. It's just, for me, it's an issue of I love PAX Premier First Edition so much. It is one of my favorite games of all time. And I feel like I'm this close to writing a thesis about the differences between the two editions and what I like about one versus the other. So it's tough because I think for me, I like the first edition more, and I feel really strongly about that. But this is just such an achievement. It's so undeniable.
Fair enough.
I agree with you so much, Andrew. So for me, PAX Premier 2.0 has been a roller coaster. I played it and I don't think I fully understood the game because we played it with Cole before it was out. So I'm playing it at Essen at a con. So it was really hard to concentrate, but also I just didn't feel like I fully understood what I was trying to do with those emerging opportunities. I'm like, well, he's Afghan and he's all set. This thing came out for him and he's good. How do I do something about this? And so I didn't really see all those ways to go get my influence up or go, have a spy and kill their card and stuff until maybe my third play. That was me. I taught this to my 12-year-old, explained the game to her, and she proceeded to destroy me because she was ready to switch. She was like, alliances? What alliances? I'm British now. I'm Afghan. I'm going over here. And she just killed everything I was doing. And then I'd have a spy and she'd be like, oh, overhand limit. I'll just kill that one. I'm like, no, I was gonna, like, it was incredible how quickly she was able to pick this up. I couldn't say that about the first edition. I don't think it would have been that easy for her to comprehend what was going to happen in that game and who was ahead. And one of the biggest differences is the fact in the first edition, you don't know what's going to happen. Somebody can really blindside you. They're all prepared. They play a card and now the game's over. And I think that was a lot of what 2.0 focused on, was kind of, seeing the game state more than you do in the first edition. So I did for a long time maintain that I liked first edition more because of that. But now, having played 2.0 with so many different people, including my kids, I'm really starting to see where this 2.0 opens this up to just so many more people understanding the game, getting into this period of history that they wouldn't necessarily approach, but now you're in it and you're playing these cards and you want to see, why do I have this power of the bodyguard? What is this about? And you kind of pick that up. And so now I'm starting to see, it's just been this roller coaster. And there was even a period of time where I was like, I don't like the game anymore. I couldn't win it. I hadn't won it in 10 times of playing it. And I was like, I just don't see the point. I can't play this. And then I kept going and I'm like, oh, this is amazing.
So I would just like, I would just like to point out how terrifying it is that Jess's daughter is whooping her. So we have no chance. Just coming up. Anyone else?
Yeah, I kind of want to echo that, because the achievement in game design with this game is truly remarkable. So, Cole took a PAX game and made it accessible in a way that you could introduce it to someone and teach it, but it's still an excellent, deep strategic game that I want to play over and over and over again. And as an example, I love the PAX games. My wife is my main gaming partner, and she's a very good sport about playing heavy games with me. But we sat down to play PAX Renaissance and got halfway through the rules, and she was like, "No, I'm out. Peace out." And but PAX Premier Second Edition, we sat down, we played it. She understood it. We had a fun game, and and there's still enough game there for me that I'm happy playing that forever. And the the ability that some designers have to do that just blows my mind. I mean, it seems like one of the hardest things to do.
All right, so there we go. That's PAX Premier Second Edition. Next, Transhumanity. PAX Transhumanity, I guess I should Mike, you wanna lead that one?
Yeah, sure. I love everything about PAX Transhumanity. I think the theme is awesome. The player interaction is awesome. The time to play is awesome. The one holdup for me, and the reason why it was not top of my list, is the barrier to entry. Right? We just talked about PAX Premier Second Edition. The barrier to entry is Jess can teach it to her daughter. I taught it to my 12-year-old nephew. He got it right away. I played it with my partner. She got it right away and beat me. There's a ton of strategic depth, and you can really game the luck in that game, but it's not hard to pick up. PAX Transhumanity, unfortunately, is a bit more overhead, right? There's a lot more going on, and that's it. That's what kept it from being number one for me, is a barrier to entry. Otherwise, I think it's a phenomenal game, and I wish I could play it more.
Shrey?
Yeah, this one was close to the top for me. I think what I like about this, that the card play is fantastic, and for a deck, I can't remember how many cards are in the deck, but
lot.
you use a relatively small fraction of them.
Right.
So game to game,
Like
you
a
kind of
third.
get like some very like interesting shifts in how the game's going to play out, and you have to keep track of what's happening on the entire board or everybody else's tableaus, and that's really interesting. The thing that I struggle with, aside from like the wording, which I actually have cheat sheet here for the game, is like syndicate and commercialize. I can't internalize those words, right? And what it does also is I look at the cards, but I don't read the titles of the cards. Like I completely am I have no connection to the theme. Right.
It's mechanical only, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing that I struggle with this game. I love the mechanics, but I don't see the theme.
Yeah, I'll pick up where Shrey left off because I'm going to pretty much echo what he said. But I play this game a ton with Andrew, so we'll let him chime in after me, I guess. But I love this game. If I could play any of these games, pick it up right now and play it, it would be PAX Transhumanity. And I texted Andrew before the start to say, hey, I want to play PAX TH. We played it over lockdown and all this stuff. And I just love the mechanics of this game. It is so clever. It's so interesting. Every game is so different. And at the end of the game, I'm like, what just happened? What did we do? How did I win this game? How did I lose this game? I have no idea what happened in this game, but I have all these meaningful decisions that happen, and I just want to keep playing because it's always so different. But yeah, the thing that holds me up is these weird words, like I'm going to syndicate this cube and the theme. I don't know what's going on in the theme, but we always have a good time laughing about what's on the card, so I guess that's something. But, I feel like there's one thing missing that Martin was talking about with PAX Premier, that kind of transcendent theme or whatever that could tie it all together. But the mechanisms of this game is just like leaves me thinking about it all the time, and I just always want to play it.
So Andrew, I mean, obviously.
Yeah, I mean this was the game that I played the most of over the last year and a few months before. Like this was the game that I was on the stream for and we did a lot of prep work for, and then when the stream was over, I was like, yep, I want to play this some more, keep going. And like this is the game that I like for a brief time obsessed over, like thinking about, because it was just such a clever puzzle that like was always felt like there's one more layer to unwrap on it. And the barrier is real. Like it's not just a rules barrier, but like there's a real barrier. You notice a lot. I notice this a lot when I teach this to people. The early game in this is a real struggle, and you can kill yourself so easily and not even realize it until it's too late. And so it's something where the teach is incredibly important. It's like the person leading the game has to like be very diligent, but be like, don't do that. You're gonna die. Like you're gonna go all that stuff in debt. You're not gonna be able to do anything. Like you put too many cubes out. Don't do that. Like so
Stop that.
Real struggle. Like for a new person to come into this, but I think it is so rewarding. Like it is. I always look for a game that is unlike anything I've played before, and this fits that bill completely because it is just such a like mechanically different puzzle every time I play it, and it's different from every other game that I can think of.
Ken, you want to talk about nukes?
Sure. I mean, who doesn't like a game with nuclear weapons? I mean, no. I mean, so this was my vote for game of the year. Yeah, I mean, super close. PAX Premier is reasonable minds can differ. That's also a really amazing game, and I could have voted for that one. But I think you guys were talking about that dopamine rush of like I managed to pull off this cool thing. I think this game does that the most for me out of all of these games. It's also unbelievably interactive. If you're not looking at the other players' boards, you're gonna lose. It's shocking how much there is basically done with essentially a deck of cards. It's basically a deck of cards, this game. I would also say, and I know we as a group disagree about this, the theme comes all the way through for me. I'm not sure.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I'm getting the thing out of it that the designer wanted, because for me, this game makes me feel like deep existential dread about the future. Like,
I'm pretty sure that he wanted the opposite.
Opposite,
right.
yeah. This is supposed to be utopia.
Right.
Your utopia is my dystopia, right? Like, and I can't help myself but read the cards many of which, like when you read about the technologies, sound like extremely creepy and scary. But yeah, the theme really does come through for me, and I think that's probably one of the reasons I like it maybe more than others on the panel do, because I feel immersed when I'm playing it. So.
All right.
Yeah, I totally agree on the theme as well. Like I really feel like I'm influencing the future of humanity, like while cutting down my rivals.
Exactly.
That comes through to me in this game.
I do not feel like a good guy.
Yeah, no, definitely not a good guy.
You can cure depression with jetpacks, which is, brutal life.
This is why I like it. You just talk about these weird things during the game. It's so fun. I can picture Ken saying some of these things while we were playing, like in the back of my head, like, "Oh yeah, you can cure some with jetpacks. It's so fun."
All right. Anyone else? All right. Then the final one, alphabetically this year is Pipeline. So go for it. Chime in. Somebody. Ariel, go. Talk.
Sure. So Pipeline's kind of similar to Barrage for Martin, where it was one of, I don't know if it was the first time I went to HCHQ, but it was very early on.
Okay.
I actually haven't played it very many times, but I loved when I played it, and it sort of hit that sort of dopamine center of heavy gaming that I'd had less experience with when I played that game for the first time. I think it was still a prototype even, and just the way that you like work different parts of your brain in that game. So there's sort of the efficiency of having a very limited number of actions, and it's very hard to actually get anything done. But then you have this like fascinating pipe puzzle, which like personally I'm terrible at that sort of thing. So
I was going to say fascinating, meaning.
Yeah.
Well, right. So me
Right,
too.
yeah.
So I could sort of sit and look at that for hours and not get anywhere. But I really like Pipeline. I have a lot of fun playing it.
Yeah, the spatial puzzle was a challenge for me and my group in particular playing this game. We played it maybe like 3 times or so since I got it, and I just find that, and this could totally be group dependent and player dependent, but there's just a lot of AP, analysis paralysis around that spatial puzzle, and I suck at spatial puzzles to begin with, so it just really, it feels like work. Like after I've played Pipeline, I feel like I've done like some intense problem solving, and I'm not sure that's really what I'm looking for in like fun board gaming. So it made my list. I think it's a cool game, but I think it was the bottom of my list for that reason. Just that brain drain I felt after playing it.
You definitely, yeah. It's one of those games, and for me, the spatial puzzle, I struggle dramatically with, and I just cannot quite figure my way out of a paper bag is what it feels like, especially when you have, Ryan Courtney telling you, oh, it's really not that hard. You just, line up the pipes and just go. And I feel for as quick a playing game as this is, I think Jess and I played a 2-player game of this in like 40 minutes.
Yeah,
of it.
it was quick.
For it being such a quick and short game, I'm mentally taxed. I'm as wiped out as I am playing an 18XX that is considerably longer just because of the mental struggle that I have with the decisions in this game. Martin, you also had it on yours.
Yeah, it's a tricky one for me because I've only got the chance to play it once. And that's not enough to get a real feel for a game. But it did quite appeal to me. And in some ways it shouldn't, because there's not a lot of interaction with the other players. You are very much building your own little thing in this game. And usually that's a big 0 for me. I really like the more interactive styles. And I think most of us in this group tend to gravitate to the more interactive games. But there's something about this game that allows it to stand out a bit. And I think part of the reason is that the design is nicely boiled down. I mean, there's a whole slew of games we haven't mentioned, we might mention in passing, that came out last year that, you would imagine could be contenders for this. I mean, last year, I played Maracaibo, I played Cooper Island, I played Crystal Palace, I played Black Angel, and so many of those games, my feeling was, there's a really good game in here and a whole bunch of stuff hiding the good game. But with Pipeline, I think they really did do a good job of boiling it down to the good game. And it's very easy to teach, very easy to pick up the basic what you got to do with the rules. but then it's a really interesting depth to it once you get in there. And even though I don't tend to go for games that are relatively low on interaction like Pipeline, I could imagine, I could do with perhaps one or two of these games in my collection for when I'm in the mood for something like that, or I'm playing with other people that are in the mood for something like that. And Pipeline would be a pretty strong choice for that setup, because it's a really nice game put together for what it is. But again, that's based off one game. So
and a lot of people in chat are saying the game becomes far more interactive the more you play it. I think that's a fair statement as well. And the way it groups the economic puzzle along with the spatial puzzle is, I think it's masterful. I think it's an amazing accomplishment. It's hard. And I'm talking to a group of people right now that, for the most part, enjoy hard games and enjoy hard things. So I get why it appeals to all of us, but it's not going to appeal to everybody, for sure. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll just sort of, I guess, echo what you were saying. It's one of the biggest pluses of this is that it is quick, and that's not only good because it's the thing you can like play in a weeknight or whatever, but like it ends right when you're like, oh, I was going to do this thing, like it was like you were like, I want one more turn of this thing, and that's like the perfect time for a game to end when you just want to play like a little bit more. So I think it nails that really.
Finally got it going.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah, and I think that also it has that moment of when you can work the pipes in a way that you get the network you need and you get a huge payout from it. That is huge dopamine rush of like, yep, I did it. I figured out pipes.
Yep, for sure. So anyone else? Anything else? All right. So I guess we beat this dog pretty well. So we had 6 games nominated as finalists. There are others we will talk about here in a little bit after we announce the winners. And winners, plural. So the first thing that I feel like I should talk about is the People's Choice Award. So normally, People's Choice is all of the patrons at Heavy Cardboard and all the attendees at Heavy Con, which normally is about anywhere between 800 and that plus the attendees of Heavy Con. Well, this year, obviously, there's no Heavy Con, so there were potentially that many voters. But as I mentioned, there were 324 votes, or 324 votes cast. Every person that cast a vote, they get 3 votes. So they're allowed to vote 3 times for one game, twice for one game, and 1 for another, or 3 for 3 different. And the 6 finalists are the ones that they can vote on. And I got to be honest, I guess I'm a little surprised, but it was clear cut. So the people in 2019 Golden Elephant Award winner, People's Choice Award, was Pax Pamir 2nd edition, designed by Cole Worley and published by Whirligig Games. So congrats to Cole and to Drew, his brother, that they run Whirligig Games. So there were 972 votes total, and of those 972 votes, Pax Pamir 2nd edition got 325 of them. So literally a third of the votes possible all went to Pax Pamir 2nd edition. So congrats there. And then for the 9 of us that voted this year, it started out as a 2-person vote many years ago, has now blossomed into 9. We voted, and gotta be honest, it was not close this year. It really wasn't. And so the winner of the 2019 Golden Elephant Award, and I apologize I don't have it physically yet in front of me, is Pax Pamir 2nd edition, designed by Cole Worley and published by Whirligig Games. So with that said, I got to be honest, I did do a bit of a white lie. And I told him that I was getting all of the designers together and everything, but no, I lied. And so, Cole, I apologize for lying to you, my friend, but congratulations, 2019 Golden Elephant Award winner. So, Cole, thanks for joining us.
You're very welcome. I wondered why the green room is so quiet.
So, yeah, not to go. I mean, you've been patiently waiting as we went through all of the finalists, and I appreciate that. So you were thought of as the Meryl Streep of the Golden Elephant Award, that you kept coming in second or a runner-up many times in the past. But talk a little bit about PAX Premier Second Edition a bit.
Well, I think it was worth losing out all those other years to win in such a strong year. Like this is, I felt so good when we talked at Origins, I think, which feels like a lifetime ago, and you told me how much you had liked Premiere and how it had turned out, and you thought like, oh, like I think it's gonna have a good chance for the Elephant. I felt quite good, and then as the year wore on and all these amazing games came out, I started getting pretty worried that maybe it wasn't gonna make it. Premiere, the second edition, what I'll say about it is that I am exceptionally lucky to be able to do it. It just so happened that Premiere, the first edition, was published by a small company, and it didn't really make sense to ever get a second printing of that game. And then I was in a spot where I was able to revisit the project and kind of rebuild it from the ground up. I mean, for folks who haven't played it, even though they share a lot of the same art, every single card got rebuilt. I actually, the hard drive that held the first PAX Premiere's core files crashed, and there was a Dropbox there, so they never synced. And so I had to rebuild the entire game from hand, but it ended up mattering because the whole game needed rebuilt anyway. And I think it's a really lucky thing because not many folks get to revisit their work in such a serious way. And it was, I think Drew and I spent the better part of our weekends and many of our evenings for about a year working on this game. And we never doubted for a moment that it was a worthwhile thing we were doing. The whole project all the way through. It was a tremendous amount of work, but it always very clearly needed to exist and needed to exist in this way.
Well, and I mean, obviously, all of us here on the panel really enjoyed the game, but I mean, just the sheer level of success it feels like that this game has gotten, and the universal enjoyment it seems that people have gotten from this game is somewhat surprising. It's got to be surprising, right?
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, I thought that my whole brand as a designer was going to be making games that no one liked. I mean, I thought I was going to be making divisive games, and I'm happy that the second edition Premiere falls in the same category of a game that, as we were working on it, it felt like, well, I'm not sure who exactly will like this, but we're really happy with it. And every project has felt like that, where I feel like in some way they're all so different, but they're unified by this kind of queasy feeling I get that I think like, well, I've really gone off on a limb now, and I'm not sure if anyone's gonna chase me on this. And it is strange. I mean, I think at Leader, we just wrapped up Oath, which is what I've been working on, and I know certain people are going to bounce off of Oath. I'm tremendously proud of it, but like the game is almost designed to irritate people. I think it does a lot of things right, but it's just it's a jagged thing, and Premiere is too. I'm especially happy, I think, with the fact that so many people love Premiere at 2, which is probably one of my favorite counts to play that game, because it is absolutely merciless. You make one mistake and you've just completely lost it.
Right.
And yet folks keep coming back and playing it, and I think it. I don't know. I mean, it's the sort of thing that Drew and I, when we're working on these kinds of projects, we only have our own sense to trust and those of our immediate friends and players. And whenever any sizable group of people follows us, we're always happy to have them. I'll say one little thing about when we first designed the Kickstarter for the second edition, the very first Kickstarter, we had no idea if anybody was going to come. And Drew and I had this very serious meeting where we created the stretch goals, and we thought, well, there's a possibility maybe only 200 people or so want this game, or like maybe 500. So can we make it on the weekends? We'll order some pieces. We can hand assemble it. We had sort of like sketched out what would this game look like if we had to do it by ourselves. And I mean, just go back to that Kickstarter page and treat yourself someday to those terrible renders that I made in Illustrator that don't look anything like the game. I had such a firm idea of what I wanted the thing to look like in my head, but my 3D skills were not up to the bat. And in fact, as the game started funding well, I had to teach myself Blender and start trying to learn how to 3D model pieces because we were going to have access and the ability to do it. And so the way I think about Premiere Second Edition is that it was made possible by sort of like 4 people. Certainly the work of my dissertation advisor, who always allowed me to do these side projects, the trust that Phil gave me in letting me kind of explore design space and really kind of work on my own. And he was always a wonderful collaborator. And then, of course, the trust of my boss, Patrick Leader, who gave me the space to work on this game in the first place. And that last person isn't really a single person at all, but just the fact that, some several thousand people would look at a really horrible 3D render and see through it to what the thing might be and allow us to realize the game as it is now. I mean, that is a tremendous gift to give someone.
Well, you definitely got something that I genuinely believe is going to stand the test of time. I think people are going to be playing and enjoying Premiere for years to come. And I appreciate it if for no other reason than lowering the barrier to entry with the PAX series. And not just the PAX series, that's the thing. Lowering the barrier to it can be kind of a stepping stone into the heavier side of the hobby, which from a selfish standpoint, not just with the show, but just, hey, more gamers. If there's more gamers that you're able to bring into the hobby and more people that are into these type of games, the more these types of games will get made, and we all win that are here on the heavier end, the deeper end of the pool. So I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Well, I am quite honored to be at this juncture and welcome folks to the other parts of this amazing hobby. I'll say one other thing relating to the longevity of the game and having it stick around. One thing that I care about a lot when I'm working on a design is the fact that games are physical. They're in physical boxes. They might get forgotten or stashed in a closet, and some generation later, some kid might stumble onto them in the same way that I stumbled onto a bunch of old war games at garage sales and the gifts of uncles and things like that. And those games still live, even if they're 40 or 50 or 60 years old. They're physical objects. And when I'm working on the design for a game, it's really my hope that the game deserves to kind of stick around a little bit. And I think when Drew and I first conceived of Whirligig, our initial goal was, let's just make this game happen. It was a little bit like putting on a show. And at the end of the year, we took stock of how everything had gone. And I asked Drew, I said, we put on this show. Everyone was really happy with how the Kickstarter went. If you want to keep doing this, we can keep doing it. And Drew said, sure, that sounds great. And then eventually, left his day job to do this stuff full time. And we ran the second Kickstarter campaign, which went really, really well. And our mission has subtly shifted, because originally our plan was, let's bring the history games I've worked on back into print. Let's get them out there and in kind of authoritative editions, and then they will have existed for that moment. But the demand for Premiere has been so dramatic that we are having to sort of shift things around a little bit to make sure that it kind of remains in print. And this is a little more of like a custodial model, like what you see the folks at Spot are doing, where there's like a real interest in saying like, well, if you have an interest in Great Zimbabwe, it may not be reprinted this year, but it's going to be reprinted at some point. And they'll do their best to make sure that everybody who wants the game can get a copy of it. And I think that's sort of, to me, like an aspirational goal for what Drew and I are hoping to do.
Awesome. Well, one other thing, and this kind of was not just getting people interested in the heavier end of the hobby, but people in chat are saying, the awesome thing about this is it gets me into history. I'll be honest, I was pretty ignorant about the great game. You go into YouTube, you watch documentaries, you watch stuff that I didn't know exist. It's kind of like what I talked about with podcasts in the past, that podcasts like Dan Carlin's Hardcore History get you interested in something and help educate people. And I think PAX Premiere Second Edition can do that as well. So a big, big thank you for designing the game. Thanks to you and Drew for publishing it. And let's face it, y'all knocked it out of the park with the production
Thank you.
value of that
Thank you so
too.
much.
So congrats.
I will say, I owe Drew many thanks. I should have probably amended the thank yous in the second edition to highlight him even more. He is the most wonderful collaborator one could imagine. We've been playing games our whole lives, and the fact that he also happens to have a good head for logistics and can run a Kickstarter better than a multi-million-dollar company. It's really incredible. And I think I want to single just a couple, that one other little thing out, which is I love the selection of games for this year. They are excellent. I have gushed to you on the cocktail hour before about how wonderful I think they are. So I won't reprise that now. But I also want to highlight the fact that they come from a lot of non-traditional actors in the board game space. Even Capstone is a small studio.
Mm-hmm.
And Pipeline is an incredibly produced title. And the fact that it's a first design is amazing. Phil Eklund's crew is obviously doing something right to get two nominees out of that list.
I know,
and then,
right?
Of course, Raymond Chandler's. I just want to echo what Martin said about Raymond Chandler III's brilliant Kickstarter campaign for City of Big Shoulders, which was seemingly effortless. And
we all know that's not the case, but
no, and it's
right,
hard. And
right,
I've been in big Kickstarters and little ones, and all of them kind of present challenges. And I just want to single out that the folks working in the heavy game space right now, I think that they deserve a lot of the trust that's being invested in them, because they're really doing right by their audience.
Well said. And congratulations again. And I'm excited. When I get the award, I will take pictures and I will send them to you and let you see. And Jess has told me, why don't you just send it to him? And I'm like, nah, I get to hand it over to him. So hopefully sometime next year, conventions start back up, we'll be able to touch base and see each other in person. And I will definitely get you your well-deserved award for this year. So.
Well, thank you very much, Edward, and I'm looking forward to playing the next. I cannot wait for the next time I get to see you and the rest of the crew among the judges.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Take care. Thanks again for taking the time tonight. I certainly appreciate it, and congrats on Oath as well.
Thank you very much. It's my privilege, and take care, everyone.
All right, take care. All right, so there we have it. The Golden Elephant Award winner, 2019. We have PAX Premier Second Edition. So before we get out of here, I want to say a big thanks to everybody here that has took the time to do all of this. I certainly appreciate all the time invested for playing the games, the streams, reviews, all of that stuff, and taking the time and effort and taking this seriously, right? Because anybody could write down names on a list of their favorite games, or maybe not their favorite games, but the games that they think deserve to be on this list. You took it serious. I certainly appreciate it. So thank you to everybody here. Everybody watching certainly appreciates you guys taking the time for doing that as well, and for making the Golden Elephant Award what it is today. And a big thanks to all the patrons who help support the show and make all of this possible. But there is one more little thing that we want to talk about. And that is some of the games that didn't make this list, because Ariel, I would hear about it forever if he didn't get to lament about this. So there are a handful of games, and I'm going to list some, and then I'll open it up to everybody here to chime in about whatever ones they want to talk about. But some of the games that were at least discussed and talked about between us, in no particular order, I just have some written down here. So we have Nevsky, Cooper Island, Dinogenics, Bee Lives, Black Angel, Yin Yang, The Crew, Crystal Palace. What else? I think that covered most of them, wasn't it? Somebody can talk. Somebody can say something.
I had Dinogenics in there.
Right. So, I mean, there's a number of games that some of us had on our list. Like I had Crystal Palace. It wasn't on enough lists to get nominated as a finalist. Ken, you're still muted, FYI. But you know, chime in. I mean, a bunch of you guys out there here on the panel had other games. So talk. Go for it.
Yeah, so I'll go. So I feel like I did my job and voted PAX Premier Second Edition runner-up to continue to motivate Cole to make awesome games. I did that. But yeah, so my number one game of 2019 was actually 1882.
I realized I forgot to mention 1882, but go ahead. Yes.
I figured you were leaving it for me, Edward.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 1882, it's an 1830 variant. But what it does that other 1830 variants are not as good at doing is that it takes everything that's great about 1830 and magnifies it. It's shorter, but it like bankruptcy is a realer threat. The privates are more interesting. There are fewer tiles available. Like all the corners are sharpened, and it makes it that much more fun. And what other 1830 variants like to do, they take 1830 and kind of dull it down and make certain things easier, which equates to it being less fun than 1830. And 1882 really digs into what's good about 1830 and just digs into that and makes it awesome. And I think, I've played 40 or so different 18xx games by now, and it's probably, in my top 5 and will stay there. So in terms of staying power, it's really a top-notch 18xx game, and it's short. I say it's a good intro game, although nobody really agrees with me, but it's because you really get the essence of what an 18xx is. So if you don't like going bankrupt, then maybe it's not the right genre for you, and you'll find that out very quickly playing 1882.
And there's a number of these games that either weren't nominated due to not enough of us played them, like that's the case. 1882, I haven't played it. Nevsky, I haven't played it yet, or that others just either haven't played or just didn't want to put it on the list. And so, and there's another one I forgot to mention was Formosa Tea. Would be another one that I know was bandied about as well. But yeah, just try as hard as we can to play all of these games. Sometimes it just, especially in this year, just didn't happen. So, but I'm jonesing to play it. I can't wait to try 1882. So, and Andrew, I know you had Nevsky on there.
Well, I was actually going to say, I had not played 1882 at the time we did the votes, but
okay.
And I wish I could retroactively go back and put it on my list, because it is very, very, it is, like, I have not played nearly as much 18xx as Ariel has, but it is really fantastic. Like, it's not a game I would introduce to a new person, 18xx, because if you wanted to turn people off the genre, that might be a way to go. But it is very, very sharp. The privates are fascinating in it. There's just like all these crazy things you can do with them, like warping tokens around the map and stuff like that. So it's just a really, really excellent game. But, the one I really want to talk about, this game, anyone who is interested in a war game, anyone who's interested in operational war games, anyone interested, I don't know why you would be, but medieval Russia and Teutonic invasion, it is fantastic. It is an amazing, just simulation of the struggle of a medieval lord trying to keep his troops alive and fed long enough for them to fight for you and maybe take something for you. It is excellent. It is definitely an investment. There's a lot of different scenarios involved. Some are shorter than others. And it's a game that, because it's played over seasons, and each season has its own little quirks and mechanics associated with it, it's a game that it unfolds the longer the game you play, but that comes with a more and more of an investment of time. So it's not necessarily for everyone, but I think it is really, really excellent and really worth looking into if you are into war games at all.
All right. And I'm jonesing to play it. I want you to come over here and we can get together at some point, I hope. So, I mean, everybody pick one. I mean, go with it. So go, Ken, go.
Yeah, so I think the one on my short list that isn't one of the finalists is Black Angel. I'd probably pick that one over Barrage or Pipeline personally. I think this sort of the way you have to carefully mess with other players in that game in exactly the right way in order to do well is kind of fun. It's like there's an isolated puzzle of how to mess with other people. Like it's sort of like it is an isolated play game, but one of the things you're doing is making things bad for other players, and I think that's a pretty interesting puzzle. And it's something it does that not a lot of other games do. So.
And you excel at that.
I don't know if I excel at it. I do have fun. I have fun with it though. So,
Right.
but yeah, so it probably wouldn't have cracked my top 3, but I think it's a really good game.
All right. How about you, Mike?
For me, it'd probably be one that wouldn't qualify for just its weight, but that's Campaign Trail. Really cool multi-use card game emulating a political battle to win the presidency of the United States. Got a real unique and interesting score tracker, unlike anything you've seen in any other games. And it's more mid-weight, but I think it's just really cool and clever, and you can pull off some nice combinations to steal a state and swing voters, and there's a whole dirty politics module you can use to really, screw over your opponents. Underrated game. I don't hear it talked about enough, but I didn't put it on my list because I didn't feel like it felt the criteria for the Golden Elephant.
All right. How about you, J-Rex?
Yeah, I mean, J-Rex, Dinogenics. I loved playing that game. That's what I wanted a dinosaur game to be. There's a lot of dinosaur games out there, but they tend to be more family weight or very luck driven. So I would play them, of course, because they're dinosaur games, but they really weren't up my alley. And Dinogenics was exactly what I wanted from a dinosaur game, just keeping them in the park, and the threats of them eating each other, and you've lost your dino that you went for. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed it.
All right, and Chris, I'm going to leave the other two to battle royale over those two other games.
I'll segue to them.
Okay.
So, for me, it came down to what games do I want to play again. It's kind of to bring it back to what you were talking about in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that was both PAX games, and then the third game I played this year was Formosa Tea, and so I threw a vote in for that because I thought that had a really unique mechanism where, in order for you to do something, you're helping other players instead of maybe some of the normal backstabbery stuff we would expect in some of our cutthroat games.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that you're giving someone an opportunity in that game by taking an action that's going to help you, but how much is it going to help your opponent? And I thought that was cool. And then, so our game days, we play a heavy game and we talk about it. And then the game I want to play to finish up a night is The Crew, and I'll just leave it at that and see who wants to talk about it.
All right, Martin Schrey, you two take it away. Go for it.
Hooray for The Crew.
Yeah, no, the Crew is definitely, it's right here. There it is.
Yep.
It is a spectacular trick taker for people who love trick takers. It takes the genre and twists it in a way that just, there's been a few other cooperative trick takers, like Familla's Trouble is one that I have back there. But that one's good. But this one I think takes it and just to a whole nother level that really makes every decision, every hand engaging and fun, and I will play that. I could play that all night, and I've done that, of course, and we'll hopefully continue do that for many years. I'm going to mention. You asked me to pick one game. I'm going to mention 4 other games.
Sure, go for it. Go ahead.
Crystal Palace is the dice payment and worker dice placement sections are gut-wrenchingly awesome, and I love that. The rest of the game is not as interesting, but the first half of each round is great. Cooper Island has an awesome tile stacking thing, which I think is unique. Well, Antics did, of course, but I think it's what I saw it in Cooper Island, and so that's that I love for that. Fillmore City, Chris already talked about, so that's the production process of tea, and the fact that I love tea is really nice. There's one game that I didn't get to play until the world changed, and so I've only played it digitally, but I've played it and I like it. It's called Flotilla. Came out at the end of last year, actually, so I'm not sure if a lot of people have had the chance to play it. But it borrows the card play from Concordia, but it changes things in different ways. It's not as streamlined or as elegant as Concordia. Concordia's a 10.
I was gonna say, I feel like you're a little biased here, but okay, all right.
But it's a really solid Euro that has one interesting decision about like when you change your entire you go from like working under the water to working in the sky, and it's like you can make a one-time decision to do that, and it changes how you work towards victory points. And I think that is a game that I definitely am looking to play more of, and I've played it like 3 or 4 times now, and I'm enjoying it every time. So.
And Martin.
Yeah, I like certainly everything Shrey said about the crew. It's a remarkable game, and I would have definitely nominated if it wasn't the fact that it is too light to be a heavy cardboard game. I will mention 2 others that also came under the too light for heavy cardboard, but worth mentioning. One, of course, is Yin Yang, which I was delighted to get the chance to play with you two when you came back from Essen. You were so excited about it, and so rightly excited about it. It's a super game. I'm just really ticked off because I can't get my hands on it. It's impossible to get hold of. But it is a great game, and that's one I'd strongly recommend, and I really hope it gets more traction over here. And also in the department of games that it's impossible to get over here in America, the very first game I played at HCHQ, Chartered, which is also a 2019 game and also a really nice lighter game. That would be another one that I thought was a really good contender for the list. But having said that, I mean, actually, the winner, Pax Pamir 2, it's actually remarkably light and easy to teach in many ways. So, there we are.
All right, and I was going to bring up Crystal Palace as well. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a big fan of dice drafting, using dice in unique ways in which you don't roll dice. And the fact that you make your workers, you price them, you give them whatever strength you want, but you're going to have to pay for it at the end. And I think that was it's a simple concept that it's one of those things to where it stops and makes you wonder, why has no one else done that before? Like, you set your own strength of your workers, i.e. your dice, but you just have to pay for that. And I think that was remarkably clever and, to the best of my knowledge, unique. And I really enjoyed it. Even if it wasn't a perfect game, I still think it was still pretty memorable. But I'll be honest, the games that did make it as finalists, I think all of them, I think we did a great job, honestly. And I feel like that sounds a little what's the right word here?
Congratulatory?
Yes. But I think we nailed it. I'm not going to lie. I really think we did. People can nitpick, like the 1882 or Nevsky. We just didn't get a chance to play them. And maybe they might have made the list. There's no set number of how many can make the finalists. But you know what? I feel pretty good about everyone that's on this list. And I feel confident that I think as a group, we did a great job with that. And I'm happy that the winner that got it, I think we got it right. I think we did. So, yeah. So well done to all of y'all. Anybody have anything else? Okay. Talkative bunch.
Just nice to see everybody.
It is.
Seriously. It's really, really good to see you guys. And to be honest with you, for everybody watching at home that watches this channel, they're still alive. Everyone, we're all right. Everyone's still here. Like Chris is a doctor, so he's out on the front line dealing with all this. And everybody else here has been social distancing and doing their part and keeping, confined to very small groups. And that's why you haven't seen everybody. So we've been trying to take all of this serious, and hopefully everybody else out at home being safe, wear your mask, social distance, do all that stuff. But I miss my friends. I miss seeing you guys in person. So I look forward to whenever we're able to do that. So thanks for everybody taking the time. If you guys enjoyed this, give it a thumb down below. It helps the channel. Appreciate it. Subscribe, support the show over on pledgehc.com. Certainly would appreciate it.
We need your fun.
And with that, I will bid you adieu. All right, here. Since there's no way to do this orderly, I'm Edward, Jess, Martin, Chris, Shrey, Andrew, Mike, Ken, and Ariel. Thank you, everybody. This has been a blast. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. And congrats to all the finalists. Congrats to Cole for the victory. And I'll be back tomorrow for a live stream of, what am I playing tomorrow? Anybody remember? Oh, Tawantinsuyu, solo, noon tomorrow. I'll see you guys then. Take care, everybody. Thanks.